Here. Your power strip. Your power strip. Plug that one in. You're gonna need it. Plug it in. Technology. Very soon, next week, just after I leave Singapore, you all will be observing Nrsimha Chaturdasi. I won't be with you for Nrsimha Chaturdasi, but we're leading up to Nrsimha Chaturdasi. And all of what I've been doing the last several days is hearing Katha in relation to Lord Nrsingadev's appearance. Over the weekend at the center, there's going to be Nrsingadev's appearance Katha specifically, parts 1 and 2. And you all recognize who's on the screen here. Do you recognize who's on the screen? What's your answer? Who's on the screen? You're not shy, are you? Okay. Ugra Nrsimha. We had a little discussion yesterday about the history behind how this deity was created. Now something very interesting just happened. Okay. One of these heavy Singaporean garlands that's so heavy that as soon as you put it on, I have to take it off. You want a garland? You're all right? Are you sure? He's not sure. No, you're sure. Okay. Is this your home? Front row? Okay.
Krishna's home. We are just taking care of it.
Yeah, taking care of it. But that's a good answer. We've been... We've been discussing prayers of Prahlad, and this evening we're just going to be discussing 3 of those prayers, 23, 24, 25. And Prahlad is going to be speaking about time and the impermanence of all things of this world, because yesterday was also the discussion about time. He's very tuned in to time, the influence of time on temporary things, and he's seeking shelter beyond the temporary. Is Buddhism popular here in China, in Singapore? Really popular? Not really? Semi. It's in the West, it's become or is becoming popular. Of course, it's a natural place for people to take shelter of when they don't want the material, but they don't want the spiritual either. They want to neutralize suffering. So time has a big place in Buddhism, and time has a big place in Krishna consciousness. Besides using time wisely, this I'm going to go launch into a little sidebar before we go into Prahlad's prayers, because he's going to be speaking about time. One of the phrases that has become popular in all fields, and at least in the West, is mindfulness. Is it popular here too? Mindfulness. So mindfulness is derived from Buddhism, and it goes like this. Consciousness is momentary. There's a Sanskrit phrase that Buddha has used. It's kshanik vijnanavad. Now, vada means doctrine of something, and kshanik is a measure of time that's less than a moment. It's Canto 4, Srimad Bhagavatam, a fraction of a second, or the blink of an eye, kshanik. It's a technical term. 1/16 of a second. It's kshanik. And vijnana is a word that he uses for consciousness. We don't use that. Vijnana, for the Prabhupada, is the way he has given it to us, is there's jnana, vijnana, theoretical knowledge and practical knowledge, or realized knowledge, vijnana. When you act in knowledge, you get realization, vijnana. Buddha's phrase is consciousness, kshanik vijnanavad. I haven't studied Buddhism, but I've studied Jiva Goswami, who explains it. So that's what I'm giving you. The root cause of suffering, if you're Buddhist, the root cause of suffering is, fill in the blank. Desire. Root cause of suffering is desire. If you want to become free from suffering, become free from desire. To become free from desire, what's the strategy? What's the process? Two things. Mode of goodness, starting with ahimsa. Live your life in the mode of goodness. Non-violence, truthfulness, cleanliness, austerity, simplicity. Mode of goodness. Frame your life in the mode of goodness, and inside that frame, you engage in mindfulness. Be in the moment. That's another way of saying the same thing. Be in the moment. Because according to Buddha, that's all there is. The past is no longer, and the future hasn't happened yet. All there is the moment. So be in the moment, be in the moment, be in the moment. And when you get really good at it, you ready? Your seatbelt's fastened? When you're really good at it, you go beyond the moment. And what's beyond the moment? Nirvana. Nirvana. What's nirvana? Cessation of material existence. Nirvana. Out of the forest of material existence. No longer in material existence. And what's on that other side? Nothing. Or enlightenment, or nirvana. Nothingness. So the somethingness is made up of moments to moment to moment, and when that consciousness of the moment is surpassed, Then there's consciousness of nirvana. No longer suffering. Nirvana. Yeah. You want to make it shorter? Microphone stands need some technology help because they sag. No, that's good. That's good. Pardon me. Okay. But Vaishnavas have a different understanding. Same slogan, the root cause of suffering is ignorance. Because from ignorance comes ignorant desire. Ignorant desire leads to ignorant activity. Ignorant activity leads to suffering. The root cause of suffering is ignorance. Because the soul has desire, and you can't anesthetize desire. I mean, you can try. You can put a living entity under anesthesia, and consciousness is so covered, you can't perceive it. They can cut you and this and that, and you don't feel anything because you're anesthetized. But when anesthesia wears off, what happens? After the surgery, you feel pain. So Buddhism doesn't work. It doesn't work because you can't stop consciousness. You can anesthetize consciousness artificially, but it's not natural, not a natural state of consciousness. So the natural state of consciousness is where there's full knowledge. Full knowledge. And now full knowledge is experienced. Enlightenment is experienced when the coverings of ignorance are removed. Pretty simple. So what do you need to remove the coverings of ignorance? You need knowledge, but not mundane knowledge. You need transcendental knowledge that doesn't come and go. It always is. And that's what the Vedas are, is knowledge. Veda means knowledge. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of that which is the source of everything. That's what Veda is. And the Vedanta Sutra, Brahma Sutra, Janmad Yasya Yataha. The absolute truth is that from which everything comes. And the commentary on Vedanta Sutra is Srimad Bhagavatam. It also starts, Janmad Yasya Yataha. And then gives a definition of what Yataha, what that is. So Prahlad is speaking to the Supreme Person who is the source of everything. And he's imparting knowledge. He's not teaching, he's glorifying the source of everything. And he knows that Lord Vishnu, or Lord Nrsingadev, who is worshipable form of the Lord, is the source of everything. And so he has a very clear, you'll hear in these 3 verses, very clear understanding of the temporary is, we heard it yesterday also, the oneness and difference between all things that come from the source. Even the ignorance portion, or the material portion, or the temporary manifestation portion, is one of his energies. I like the way Prabhupada says it. The way that Prabhupada says it is, in creation there's 2 things. There's God, and there's that which comes from him, and there's not a third thing. There's Krishna, and there's Krishnas, and there's not a third thing. In the creation of God, in the spiritual or material creation. So Prahlad, yesterday's verses, he was speaking both spiritual and material, and saying, I don't want the material. I saw my father, he wasn't on top of the pile. He had everything material. And like that, it was all taken from him, just like that. And you took it from him. So I want shelter of you, not because I want material. No thank you. I want shelter of your lotus feet. But he has realization. He's going to express the realization in these verses of what he saw and what he understands, and he just wants one thing. Mam ekam sharanam. The same message as Bhagavad Gita, just postgraduate or graduate study of Bhagavad Gita. So here we go. 3 verses. My dear Lord, people in general want to be elevated to the higher planetary system for a long duration of life, opulence, and enjoyment. But I have seen all of these through the activities of my father. When my father was angry and he laughed sarcastically at the demigods, they were immediately vanquished simply by seeing the movement of his eyebrows. Yet my father, who is so powerful, has now been vanquished by you within a moment. So there's the attraction for the temporary and the higher planetary systems. Persons are eager to seek the pleasures of heaven. And all of that is taken away at the time of cosmic annihilation. The demigods and the realms of the demigods are not free from that destruction. They live a long time, yes. Their sensual pleasures are very elevated, yes. They have powers. They have many, 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 many attractive features. And it's all temporary. Srila Prabhupada writes about this. There's Hiranyakashipu undergoing his austerities. There's Lord Brahma pouring water upon the body that was just bones. There was anthill around him, and he gave him this benediction, that benediction. Fire was coming from his head. This fellow was intense. And in a moment he was finished. Sukha and dukkha, they're companions in this material world, whatever it may be. Prahlad Maharaj did not give any importance to anything in this material world. No one can maintain his body or material achievements forever. A Vaishnava can understand that nothing within this material world, not even that which is powerful, opulent, or influential, can endure. At any time, such things may be vanquished. And who can vanquish them? The Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the diagram at the top, that's one universe. And inside the one universe, there's Garbhodakshai Vishnu and the 14 planetary systems within one of the universes, within the interior of the universe. And then there's the coverings of the universe. Next, this verse, Nija Britya Parshvam, that's what he wants. He wants to be the Britya, he wants to be the menial servant. Nija, his own, Lord Nrsingadev's menial servant. I don't want stuff. Tasmat. My dear Lord, now I have complete experience concerning worldly opulence, mystic power, longevity, and other material pleasures enjoyed by all living entities from Lord Brahma down to the end. As powerful time, you destroy them all. Now, kalos me. Krishna says the same in Bhagavad Gita. By time I am the destroyer of all things. So it's not a different message, it's just elaborated upon in the Bhagavatam, in this case by Prahlad. Kala bhayanam mam nijabritya parshvam. Therefore, because of my experience, I do not wish to possess them, my dear Lord. I request you to place me in touch with your pure devotee, and let me serve him as a sincere servant. It's like the fourth time in all the few prayers that we've covered, he speaks about time, and the time factor brings things, maintains, and destroys. It's a very important tool or nimitta, an instrument that Krishna uses. In the spiritual realm, there isn't past, present, future. It's eternal. And that's an interesting concept because we don't have anything to relate to eternal. We're eternal. The Supreme is eternal, and time is eternal. And there's the past, present, future time. In order for creation, this is a Canto 3 topic in relation to time. In the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, we saved you a high chair seat. We saved it. It has your name on it. And you're right next to the screen and everything. Thank goodness. Special seat. You're good? You can see the screen? Okay. So, Canto 3, Srimad Bhagavatam. Time is eternal, and there's a reflection or a temporary manifestation of that which is eternal in this realm, and that starts with time. So in time, as we know it, moves in cycles. Wheel of time. And there's small, medium, really big. Day of Brahma is a big one, but the day of Brahma is just one day of Brahma. One day of Brahma is 1,000 yuga cycles, and one yuga cycle, that's another cycle, and that's a big one too. Then there's the periods of Manu, that's 71 yuga cycles. So there's moves in cycles, day and night, etc. Time moves in cycles. So one part of that, the big cycle, is cosmic annihilation. And what happens during cosmic annihilation? It's really simple. He just pulls the plug. He withdraws time. And when he withdraws time, the whole thing collapses. That which is manifest starts to, the subtle goes into, the gross goes into the more subtle, into the more subtle, into the more subtle, into the more subtle. The cosmic manifestation goes back to an unmanifest state. All the elements that have differentiated for purpose of creation become undifferentiated, or pradhan. Pradhan is just the name of Prakriti. It's one of the states of Prakriti. It's where there's a big, not visible, but totality of the material elements just resting in an undifferentiated state. And the living entities are drawn within the body of Mahavishnu. And what do? For the duration of one creation, they're sitting there in this susupti state. Susupti is like being anesthetized. They're conscious, but they're not, the consciousness is so dull because its souls are conscious, but consciousness is in the susupti state of consciousness. So they don't feel anything. And the wheel of time moves, and Mahavishnu is considering, Two things. These living entities that are within the body, my body, they're not experiencing happiness. I wish, it's his desire, I wish that they can experience the fullness of happiness. He just desires. And within Mahavishnu, we don't see a form of Rama Devi adjacent to or at the feet of Mahavishnu because she's within Mahavishnu. Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, she's at his feet. Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, she's at his feet. Mahavishnu, she's within Rama. And she intimately knows her master, and she knows he has a desire, and her existence is to fulfill his desire, transcendental desire. So what does she do? There's another desire that Mahavishnu has. He sees at the distance this unmanifest state of Prakriti or Pradhan. And she is a reflection of Rama Devi. I'll say it again because there's a little distraction. This is important. I'll just pause till you get settled. Not bad. Well done. Okay. So I'm going to go back. Two desires. One, Mahavishnu desires the living entities who are in a dormant state of consciousness can experience the fullness of happiness. Second, at a distance he sees Pradhan, and he knows that she has a desire to do some service, and she has no service in the unmanifest state. So he desires, second desire, she should have some service to do. He doesn't lift a pinky, he just has a desire. And Rama Devi knows what his desire is, so what does she do? Two things. Rama Devi, seeing the Lord glancing at Pradhan, she, Rama Devi, transfers the sum total. It's called samasti. The sum total of all living entities are transferred to his glance. His glance has a name too. Shambhu is the glance of Mahavishnu. She entrusts the sum total of all living entities to the glance and an expansion of time energy. Now, time energy is of the spiritual world, Kala Shakti. Kala Shakti is under her direction, like so many other sub-Shaktis under her direction. And time as we know it is transferred to the glance of Mahavishnu. Because without time, nothing happens. Here we are, assembled together. And after some point of time, we're going to go somewhere. Well, most of us will go somewhere. You're going to stay here. Most likely. Who's your wife? Okay. So you'll stay here too. But most of us are, so time energy is moving. Now, it's not like we're just neutral blobs. We have desire too. But corresponding to desire, without time we can't move. We can't stay, we can't exist. So time as we know it is transferred along with the living entities through the glance of Mahavishnu, contacts Pradhan, and Pradhan starts to differentiate with time in the living entities. They become agitated or impregnated with time in the living entities. And then elements start to differentiate. The first element that differentiates, our dear friend, false ego. Before we do anything, before we have even a body, there's our dear friend, false ego. And then so forth and so on and so on and so on. So then the cosmic manifestation takes place. Brahma appears from the body of Garbhodakshi Vishnu. Brahma does what Brahma does because Vishnu did what Vishnu did. Now Brahma can do what Brahma does. And then the wheel of time turns and it's time for cosmic annihilation. He just pulls time, pulls the plug. He withdraws the time energy and everything's dissolved. Goes back to an unmanifest state. It doesn't go out of existence. It's not Buddhism. It just goes to an unmanifest state. Therefore, the desires that are in the realm of bhukti, or material enjoyment, mukti, in the negation sense of bhukti, means cessation of material existence. That sense of mukti. And siddhi, mystic powers. Bhukti, mukti, siddhi, kami, sakale ashanta. Kama is desire. The desire for bhukti, mukti, or siddhi, that it's not having opulence is a problem. It's the desire for opulence, the desire for liberation, the desire for powers. I'm going to tell a little story. Little story. It's a Rupa Goswami story. Rupa Goswami, you know who is Rupa Goswami? Rupa Goswami was the dearmost associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He imparted the fullness of understanding of the process of devotional service and the goal, and he empowered him to realize it, and he empowered him to write it. He was a powerful person by the power meant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he's writing Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. In the course of writing Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there was a very learned Brahmana named Venkatabhatta. No, excuse me, Ballabhabhatta. Ballabhabhatta. Not Ballabhacharya. They're two persons. Ballabhabhatta. And so as he's happy. Shanti. Okay. Ballabhabhatta had a reputation. Scholars, it wasn't all scholars, but many of the scholars of his time, they would travel, go to a place of higher learning, and they would engage in discussion with someone and have a debate, and then the person who would lose the debate would become the follower of the one who won the debate. So he came to Vrindavan, and he heard that the most learned scholarly person in all of Vrindavan was Rupa Goswami. So he came to meet Rupa Goswami, and he didn't invite a debate, but he just honored Rupa Goswami. I heard you're so scholarly. And Rupa Goswami said, I've heard same things about you. Can I ask some service from you? Depends. Yes, I'm writing a manuscript on the science of bhakti. And I'd like you to read the manuscript, go over it very carefully, and you find some mistakes or something that needs correction, you can be my editor. Please. Oh, yes. I'm very learned and I can do that service for you. So he gave him a manuscript, Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu manuscript. Some days later they met. I liked everything, except I found one section that I'm a little uncomfortable with. And that section I'm uncomfortable with is, you described bhukti oops, bhukti and mukti to be like witches. And yes, certainly, bhukti is like a witch because it takes away the enthusiasm for transcendence. But mukti is praised so much again and again in the Vedas. So I have a little difficulty, calling mukti a witch. Rupa Goswami said, let me think carefully about your remark. We'll meet again. For now, my disciple, Jiva Goswami, will take you to the river Jamuna. You can do your midday bath and say your Gayatri, etc. On the way, while walking to the river Jamuna, pay attention. This is your granddaughter, right? She's taking after you. Better be careful. On the way walking to the river Jamuna, Jiva Goswami, super scholar Jiva Goswami, asked Venkatabhatta, could you explain to me what it was that you found uncomfortable about that verse? And he said again, mukti is praised so much in the Vedas. And Jiva Goswami said, you didn't understand properly what he had written. He didn't say that bhukti and mukti are a wish. It's the desire for asha, small phrase. The desire for bhukti, the desire for mukti, that's the wish. Mukti in itself isn't a problem. Many great Vaishnavas were very opulent. Ambarish Maharaj and so forth and so on. It's very opulent. But that wasn't a problem. Wasn't a problem because they weren't desiring the opulence. They were using the opulence 100% in service to Krishna. So the opulence itself is not the problem. It's the desire. Desire means to be the enjoyer of something. You have too many friends, that's the problem. This is traffic control. It's that we're shifting around so that people that are standing up in the back can have space and things like that. Okay. It's the desire. So that back to the Buddhism topic. It's not desire in itself. It's ignorant desire. Ignorance is the culprit. And remove ignorance, and what do you have? You have knowledge. And so he, Prahlad, has had his knowledge reawakened by Narada Muni. Prahlad Maharaj rejected them all, Mukti Mukti Siddhi Kami. He simply wanted to engage as an apprentice under the guidance of a pure devotee. This is Prabhupada's purport. It's all very symmetrical. It's very nice. Here's the phrase, Nija Bhritya Parshvam, or association of your faithful servant. When there's absorption in association of a pure devotee, faithful servant, then the asat goes away. You're no longer attracted. It's same understanding as Bhagavad Gita. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinam. Anybody know the verse? Say with me. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinam Rasovarjam rasopyasya param drishtva navartate. Very good. Param drishtva, higher taste. So that higher taste leads to it. The asat, the lower taste, fades, and it's just gone eventually. That's in the fully purified state. So here's a little diagram. I hope you like this cute little diagram. It has 4 slides. There's a seesaw. I don't know what you call it here in Singapore. Seesaw, teeter-totter, either one of those terms I'm familiar with. So on one side, there's the material being over on the right side. That's us. And over on the left side is spiritual instructions. And there's the fulcrum, the mind, next to false ego. We're very attached to our mind, very attached. Now, through the force of instruction, that's that arrow on the far left, if and when the mind becomes faithful and steady, you don't have a tottering fulcrum, you have a steady mind, faithful and steady mind. Spiritual instructions lift the soul. So here's the same thing. There's the mind, the fulcrum. There's the soul that's covered. But somehow, if we become fixed in faith and determination, here comes the next. Spiritual instructions. And what happens? Boom! Consciousness gets elevated. Cute, huh? Just have to get a fixed and firm and steady mind and find good instructions from a good instructor. Now that's there in Bhagavad Gita, in Srimad Bhagavatam, and many persons can repeat the message. That's the guru function. Just convey the message of Krishna. That's the guru function. Then the difficulty is from our side. The mind's not so fixed and determined. And so let's do it again. Do it again. There's the conditioned soul. That's us, that guy on the left. And then there's this fulcrum, the mind. And then there may be some opportunity of getting spiritual instructions. And when the spiritual instructions, it lifts consciousness beyond the conditioned state of consciousness. It's a little diagram. That's Krishna consciousness, decorated with spiritual qualities. Meanwhile, back to Prahlad, life is temporary. So sometimes we get so busy that we don't ask ourselves the important questions. Like, what's it all about? To the Artha Forum, you folks know what the Artha Forum is. That's going to be my topic for the Artha Forum. Who am I? Huh?
What are you living for?
No, yeah. Purpose. Who am I? Kayami. That was the question of, 2 questions of Sanatana Goswami. When Sanatana Goswami, super enlightened, elevated Brahmana personality, very elevated personality. 2 questions when he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with straw, literally, with straw in his teeth, clasping his teeth, falling at his feet. 2 instructions. Who am I? Kayami. Bengali. Kayami. And why am I forced to suffer the threefold miseries of material existence? Tapatraya. Tapatraya. Threefold miseries. Why? So the who am I is what's my purpose? Anyway, that's what we're going to be speaking about. Same topic. Well, let's see. Here's the last verse of the 3 verses. In this material world, every living entity desires some future happiness which is exactly like a mirage in the desert. Where is water in the desert? Or in other words, where is happiness in this material world? As for the body, what is its value? It's merely a source of various diseases. The so-called philosophers, scientists, politicians know this very well, but nonetheless they aspire for temporary happiness. Happiness is very difficult to obtain, but because they are unable to control their senses, they run after the so-called happiness of the material world and never come to the right conclusion. Now, Prabhupada spoke on these points hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, not exactly in the same Sanskrit language, but the same message again and again. Why? Because people are covered with ignorance. And they do ignorant things because of ignorance. Desire is there. Desire isn't the problem. Ignorance is the problem. So ignorant desire leads to suffering. In the name of enjoyment. The enjoyment is like this. This is a photograph, purposefully. It's a photograph of a mirage. It looks like pools of water in the desert. But by definition, the desert is a place where there's no water. So what's that? It's a reflection of the sun on the silicon. It looks like water, but it's not water. And foolish people go after the mirage. As one cannot stop a blazing fire by constantly pouring ghee upon it, one cannot satisfy oneself by increasing plans for sense enjoyment. Very sensible, and sometimes people aren't so sensible. Here's a BBT painting. There's desire, that's the lake of desire, and then down on this side there's Lord Brahma, and from Brahma comes all the other things that are part of material life, unfortunately. And then on the other side of material desire, there's the spiritual realm, and that's where we belong. It's not just wishful thinking, that's the construction of material and spiritual realm. We're going to end abruptly. Rather, we have to follow the instructions of Lord Krishna, Sarvadharmam parijyajya mamekam sharanam vraja, then we shall be happy. Otherwise, in the name of happiness, we shall continue to suffer miserable conditions. It's not a difficult choice. We're not attached to suffering, we're attached to the sources of suffering. Thinking, I just have to have a better plan, adjust the plan, arrange things this way instead of that way, then voila, happiness. And then, yes, there is happiness. Let me list the ways. And then that happiness that we list is ephemeral. It's not real happiness on the soul platform, and it's flickering. Wait a while, and anything that's happiness is gone. And then you're lamenting because it's gone. Or you lament because you didn't get it, or it didn't come out the way that you thought it was going to come out. I invite you all someday you become a sannyasi guru and get letters from people that write you letters about how they had an expectation that didn't get met and now they're suffering. Whew. It's ABC. The problem isn't the desire. The problem is ignorant desire. Ignorance means ignore Krishna. The root of ignorance is ignoring Krishna. You turn your attention to Krishna and there's light instead of ignorance. Then from turning attention to Krishna, there's obstacles. What are the obstacles? It's the unwanted things inside the heart that says there's still an opportunity for me to enjoy. And we just have to figure it out. Then you're smart if you can figure out how to arrange things so that you can be the enjoyer of things. But that's not intelligence. That's foolishness. That's another ignorance. So how to take that which Krishna has given each one of us and to use that with one purpose and one purpose only. Mam ekam sharanam. So let's see if there's some discussion. I have many other thoughts, but there've been a lot of interruptions. So I'm just going to stop here and see if there's any comments or discussion points you'd like to bring up. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Thanks for a very enlightening.
I'm just Prahlad.
Maharaj, you spoke about need to control or manage our desires. Right? But while some of us, we do understand the criticality of this, by and large, in this material world, desire is what drives ambition.
Yeah.
Ambition is what drives, let's say, activity or performance. And
Yeah.
for a lot of us who are, pursuing this so-called rat race, one's worth is judged based on how ambitious you are, how committed you are.
Depends on who's the judge.
Someone who is not aware of these.
Okay.
The-
That's the world we live in.
precisely. But then we cannot escape out of that
That's
and take a different.
Yes, you can. You have to not escape out of that, but you have a different purpose. Can one be a successful, whatever, engineer, entrepreneur, whatever, for Krishna? Is it possible or impossible? Okay, so that's our challenge. The challenge isn't. I got to compete with the rat race. Some persons, devotees included, do that because that's what you're supposed to do, and they don't see that option. There is an option. Is there an option? Yes. Are there successful, busy people? Yes. Do you know any successful, busy people? I know successful, busy people in the material world. Successful, busy, very Krishna conscious. It's an exception. But the principle permits that kind of success. Just apply the principle. Don't feel crushed by the pressure of the material. If you feel that, then you're going to yield. So then, how do you get there if you're not there? Little at a time. I like Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writings. One of them is, it's an incrementalism message. Progress is a series of small steps in the right direction. So take that principle and apply it to what you just said. And so I'm here and I'm feeling crushed or, whatever, pushed around by these things to know what to do. Get your GPS out, know what the destination is, and start moving to the destination. Little by little. You're not like get to the destination instant. Suppose you can make some wrong turns. The GPS is going to tell you how to get back on track. If you have a good GPS system. So the good GPS system is Bhagavad Gita. And just follow the principle. And I'm not there yet. Welcome to the club. I'm not there yet. Club. There's lots of us in it. So, but then what do? You know what the goal is, and you work towards the goal, little by little, little step by step. So what are some steps that you can take, and each one of us can ask and take guidance from the experienced devotees? What steps might be appropriate for you to take in the direction of where you want to be? And in course of time, some things may just drop off. It's not really that important to me. It's too much impinging on what is really important, so it just fades. You have to saw it off. The significance just fades. But it fades on the strength of bhakti increasing, not to the strength of trashing something, giving it a bad name and throw it in the garbage can. Let it come about by the dimmer switch, and you turn the light on brighter, brighter, brighter. The darkness is dispelled progressively. That's the incrementalism. Small steps in the right direction with proper guidance. And if you don't know what that proper guidance is, then that's an important issue for you to find. Find proper guidance. You know, call it by different names, but proper guidance. You want to say something?
To ask you that you mentioned about the GPS and move in the right direction. So some people, some of us, for example, are following the path, but how do we know, are we making progress
Oh,
in the right direction?
yeah. Really simple. Material desires are dialing down. And spiritual desires dialing up. Now, how do you know what a material and spiritual desire is? Bhagavad Gita. Become familiar with Bhagavad Gita. And then you'll know that the what's the word? The markers or the barometer readings. How do I tell? When you samsiddhir haritoshanam, when you're feeling satisfied, and because Hari is being satisfied, then the material desires subside. Supposing you don't have the GPS set properly, supposing it's just get better at something, leading kirtan, or better at organizing festivals, or better at something, better at cooking the prasadam for all of our guests, or something. And people go, oh, it was very good prasadam, Mataji. The bell rang. But so that's a material desire. So cooking isn't the problem. So the standard is the material dimension is asha. The desire for bhukti or mukti is diminishing. And then when opulence does come, or the fruits of nicely performed devotional service does come, you have you're humble. You're not inclined to be the enjoyer of the praise. Oh, Prabhu, you cooked such a nice feast, or Prabhu, you led kirtans. Or, we should say those things to people that do service nicely, and the person doesn't go, oh no, it was terrible cooking. You don't have to be in denial, but it doesn't go to you, it doesn't stick. It gets transferred to those persons who taught you how to cook, how to sing, how to do anything. Go to those persons. Just right through you to those persons. Because you're connected to those persons, you know it's a fact. Before those persons came into my life, I was a blob. I was like, I wasn't able to do what I'm able to do today. They get the credit. They placed this capability, which was right in the text that we just read. Elevation of consciousness and decoration of good qualities go together. Where do the good qualities come from? From the instructor and the good instructions. And I just said yes, instead of let me think about it. It's not, it's easy to talk about, it's another thing to do it. But the cult bhakti, Prabhupada writes in Nectar of Devotion Introduction, bhakti is a sort of cultivation. Same as Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Small steps in the right direction. Cultivation. Bhakti is a sort of cultivation. So cultivate. And today I'm here. And maybe in 1 year from now I'll be there. But it's not just by wishful thinking or cosmetic something. It's taking steps in the direction. Make sure you've got your GPS on. Make sure you do re-evaluating this question, why am I doing what I'm doing? Is it because on the material, or is it because that Krishna should be pleased? It's a small thing. It's a consciousness thing. It's very subtle. And if it's right, then this example you gave, you can recalibrate the whole thing and move in the right direction and be very successful. Or not be very successful. Let's take book distribution. Prabhupada wanted book distribution. Some people are really gifted at book distribution. Some people are hardly gifted at book distribution. And who's pleasing? The effort is what's pleasing, not the result is pleasing. Like the Hanuman and the squirrel. So maybe you're the squirrel, maybe but it's the intention to please. That's bhakti. That's the essence. And then the capacity will grow corresponding to bhakti, naturally. One becomes able to do things that I wasn't able to do, couldn't even think of doing before. But don't take the credit for it. Don't become the enjoyer of it. And then it can go the other direction. Some persons can become envious and critical because you're doing something nicely. And then they find fault, and it's just the material world is that kind of a place. Just leave it. Just leave it. Others. Comments or questions? Complaints? Yes.
You touched upon how Ramadevi had Mahavishnu in creation, like
She's a servant of Vishnu.
manifestation and manifestation.
Yeah.
Doing that, I was thinking, like, why Krishna is a process of repeated cycles of manifestations and manifestation?
That's a nice question. Why does time move in cycles? In essence. It's just part of the lesson of impermanence. It's not permanent. Everything comes into being, stays for some time, and is withdrawn. Within this realm of time as we know it. And so why creation? Because we wanted it. Really? We wanted Singapore? I mean, Singapore didn't used to look like this. Looked very different. But some people wanted this, so and the intelligence and the resources, and now it looks like it looked. And at some point in time, they pulled the plug, and it's all collapsed. Withdrawn. Because it's temporary. It's just the nature of the place. Time moves in cycles because it's the nature of time. Time as we know it. There has to be a beginning and growth, and those 6 changes. Anything. It's not always the same, but it's always cyclical. Time as we know it moves in cycles. Anything else? Oh, yeah.
Like, that's like young man had the desire that he serve under some pure duty.
Yeah.
So, like chicken food also, but when we are desiring for someone else or when we are praying for someone else, so what is the best way to pray for them?
The best way to pray for someone, whether they're in the material or the spiritual world.
Whether they left the material world
There's customized details of a principle, but the principle is connection with the source through the medium of loving devotion. That, when the heart of that soul becomes drawn to loving service to the Supreme, that's the best. And then the details are details. They can be this or that or the other. So what's a prayer of well-wishing to another? That's the essence of your question. Let that bhakti connection become palpable and vital and the way of life of that soul. Whether they're lesser, pure, greater. Perfected souls don't need our prayers, we need their prayers. Okay, that's it. Yes, you have something.
More of a technical question.
A technical question.
Maharaj, you mentioned that at the end of Brahma, is it day or life when the material elements go back to Pradhana, while the soul, the jiva, go back to the body of Mahavishnu?
Yes.
That happens every cycle of Brahma's
No.
life? Or
No. At the end of Brahma's life, yes. Not the end of Brahma's day. He's gone too. I mean, the whole shebang. The elements not just go back into the elemental stage, they go into the unmanifest, undifferentiated Prakriti phase. It's the same Prakriti, it's just different states for different purposes. Yes.
So Prahlad Maharaj is able to see things in relation to Krishna,
Yeah.
previous verses. But today's verse, he was telling, I don't want anything material, so I was a little stuck there. Is he meaning the consciousness or?
Yes, exactly. I mean, Prahlad, what happened with Prahlad? He became a king. He didn't want to become king. But Lord Nrsingadev wanted to become king, so he became king. Not because he wanted to become king. He didn't have material want. Service, please. Which is just, similar to your question. You have the last question. That was it?
Yeah, I just wanted to. So Singapore is named after a person who was half lion, half man. Any connection with Lord Nrsimhadev?
I don't know the history of Singapore. Good chance, but I don't know the history. Why don't you take an assignment before now and the next time we have a discussion about Srimad Bhagavatam? You can give us the answer to that question. The history of how Singapore got the name. There may be more than one idea out there too.
I was thinking we are very fortunate living in Singapore because it represents Lord Nrsimhadev.
Well, you're fortunate that you're thinking that. That's actually the history or not actually the history. Just hear Singapore and you think, Lord Nishingadev. Very fortunate. Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki, Prahlad Maharaj ki, Nishinga Bhagavan ki.